poll question for hour 2, Seton. What are we going to go with?
Hour 1, Dan, we had who gets the first technical tonight, Draymond or the field? Right now, 69% of the audience think it's going to be Draymond Green. How about that?
Okay, if you're the Celtics, do you bait him?
Heck yeah.
Okay.
Before even tip-off, somebody needs to be chirping at him.
But if you're Draymond, do you bait the Celtics? Feels like that's all he does. That's the best thing he does when he's on the floor now. Yes, Marv?
I'm looking for him versus Cedric Maxwell. I think they're going to have some issues.
Well, Cedric Maxwell's an announcer.
Cedric Maxwell. So Draymond responded to something Cedric Maxwell said, and it's a thing.
Yeah, but how are they? They're not going to cross paths.
He's right at the scores, where all the radio announcers are.
All right, here's Draymond Green. I guess he's responding to Cedric Maxwell. Cedric Maxwell played with the Celtics. He was the Finals MVP, very good player. And he's been an analyst for the Celtics for a long, long time. And Draymond Green, of course, has to comment on everything. So he commented a rant about players from the 80s and 90s.
One thing that baffles me about the 80s or the 90s or whatever you want to call when basketball was so much more physical is some of the guys that be talking weren't the guys that was punching people. Like they act like, guys was just walking around the court like I'm hitting this guy in the nose. There were a few guys back then that would lay you out, that would knock you out, that would foul you and get thrown out the game. Bill Laimbeer, Rick Mahorn. But everybody running around acting like they were that. Y'all were getting bullied. And so it baffles me when every guy, just because they played in the 80s, just because they played in the 90s, is like, man, if you played in our day, you get knocked out. Like, no, not really, because it wouldn't be you. So, okay, you saying Rick Mahorn would have knocked me out. Rick Mahorn probably knocked you out.
All right. Yeah, Paul.
At first, I wasn't sure what he's saying, but I think he's saying all the people talking about how tough basketball was in the 80s and 90s weren't the enforcers. They weren't the Rick Mahorns, the Anthony Masons, Charles Oakley. Dominique Wilkins talking about it. He wasn't enforcing anything. Great player, but he wasn't enforcing.
Yeah, but they were on the receiving end of this, so they have credibility. They were getting hit. So I don't know what Draymond's like. What's his problem? Yes, they hit you, and the star players got hit. Just ask Jordan. The best player in the game got hit. That doesn't happen now. You can't do that to anybody now. Have Draymond go back and look at what the Pistons did to Jordan. The Jordan rules. They wrote a damn book about it. I mean, I'm glad that Draymond name-dropped Rick Mahorn and Bill Laimbeer, but that was an entire team concept of what they were going to do to the best player in the game. Protect him? They didn't back then. If Mike played now, you wouldn't touch Michael. They wouldn't let you touch him. Absolutely not. Now, I disagree with what Draymond is saying. Yeah, there were enforcers, but there were guys who were going to hit you. Kevin McHale was not an enforcer. Ask Kurt Rambis. He lassoed him, threw him to the ground. He didn't get tossed. The games get more physical, the deeper into the postseason. They do. But back in the day, they were always physical. It wasn't an occasional. You expected the physicality. Now, I'm surprised when you get physicality. Like, wow. Back then, I was surprised when, if you went to the hoop, if I was going to foul you, I'm really going to foul you. And that was the case. You got hit. And if you're a rookie, you're not getting a call. That's the way the NBA was back then. Was it always knockdown, drag out, physical, guys getting thrown out of games? No, it wasn't. But it was far more physical than what you have now. You protect the stars now. Back then, they didn't. Yeah, more.
Now it's 10 minutes at the monitor to see whether it's a flagrant one or a flagrant two.
Yeah, I know. I don't even think McHale was given a technical. They didn't have flagrant fouls. They had playoff fouls, is what they were called. They were just fouls. It wasn't like, is that a 1 or a 2? We're going to give him a technical? No. Now, Should they have done that and protected the stars back then? Yes, they should have. But that's not what the NBA was back then. Yes, Eaton.
Well, it is true that the game was more physical back then. Like Draymond would also be allowed to be more physical.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, it sort of evens out in a way, I guess.
Well, it would play to his strengths, but he's criticizing the 80s and 90s. If he played in the 80s and 90s, he might get away with more and be even better as an instigator. But everybody else is able to do that. Now, they kind of, Draymond gets in your face or he tries to pull down your short, whatever it is, you don't want to retaliate because he wants you to retaliate. But I disagree with, his labeling of the 80s and 90s. You're right. If Larry Bird is talking about getting hit, he wasn't an enforcer, but he was getting hit. Ask Steph Curry, how many times do you really get fouled hard? Remember Steve Kerr? Steve Kerr went nuclear when Marcus Smart went after a loose ball and rolled up on Steph Curry's ankle. Like, that's a dirty play. Come on, Steve. You know what a dirty play is. You know what a physical play is. Like that? Oh, my God, did you see that? Yeah, because it was Steph Curry. If it's Jordan Poole, nobody's going crazy over it. We protect our stars. You're protecting your investments, which I understand.